So Upvest in general is a securities API. We are a company that is based in Berlin, around 25 employees, and we get really excited about building the securities infrastructure 2.0. That basically means we have seen that a lot of fintechs are growing pretty rapidly, or neobanks, but that don't have the corresponding fintech infrastructure. It basically means the custody, the clearing, and also the issuance of securities is really expensive and also relatively slow. And so we kind of built this from scratch based on the blockchain via asset tokenization to help these players in the future. We are BaFin licensed, so we received the crypto custody license. It's a specific license in Germany that you can actually custody securities, but also cryptocurrencies. Had around 50 million assets under management with our partners last year and are strongly growing. And our team is composed of people from Klarna, TransferWise, Onfido, Goldman Sachs, and other big banks and fintechs. So pretty diverse team that gets really excited about building the infrastructure of tomorrow. Some of our customers, so we do this actually since 2018, we have been shifted a little bit from cryptocurrencies to asset tokenization, as there have been quite some regulatory changes, specifically in Germany. So one change was that you can distribute real securities to retail customers completely on the blockchain. So it was the first country that allowed this. And the second big change was the crypto custody license, where you now have by the BaFin in the law, a specific license you have to obtain to custody certain securities and cryptocurrencies. So these two things actually made Germany one of the most advanced countries in the world for asset tokenization. And we benefited from this because one of these fintechs and these neobanks, they now actually actively work with us. So we had around 50 million in 2019. We are on track to have 300 million assets under management this year, and also bigger neobanks and fintechs that would like to work with us. So before we actually go into the product, I think one of our theses is that neo-brokerage is on the rise. So you see really big digital players like Trade Republic, Razer, and Scalable that have raised a lot of money, and they find a new way to sell now securities to, I would say, our generation. They really care about UI. They really care about cheap costs. They really care about internationalization. In the second line, you have a lot of, I would call them blockchain disruptors. So Exporo, for instance, they sell real estate securities on the blockchain to retail customers, but you also have, I would call them blockchain banks, Bitwala and Bitpanda. So they really officially get banks or work with banks together and make it very simple digitally on a mobile phone to buy cryptocurrencies, but also tokenized assets in the future. Those are also our clients. But then you have also these really big companies and these high growth companies like N26, Revolut, and Monzo, and they also have to expand their businesses towards selling assets, securities, for instance, but also cryptocurrencies. And one of the things that they get really excited about is that they would like to distribute their solutions on a European scale, because these fintechs, they didn't just start in one country, they also want to expand internationally. So Monzo goes to US, Revolut is already in, I think, more than 50 countries, and N26 also wants to expand. So they need like new rails to internationalize also the brokerage of securities. And lastly, you have these very big tech companies like Uber, Facebook, and Google. They all move towards fintech because they have the customers. They have actually also the trust partly from their end users, and they also partly manage the cash flows. Like for instance, at Uber, they manage the cash flows of their drivers, why not just offering retirement investment product, which they actually start in California. But then they also have to think about what is the right infrastructure to access these securities and to trade these securities. And one of the problems that we have encountered over, let's say, the last 12 months is that it's very hard to internationalize with the current rails. You have to find a custodian, which is someone that keeps the securities in every country. And these custodians, they have to work with clearing houses, which is kind of like master custodian that swaps these assets between these different countries. This is still relatively manual, surprisingly, and you have a lot of different custodians and clearing house in Europe. So you have a different clearing house in France, you have a different clearinghouse in Germany, you have a different clearinghouse in Switzerland, you have a different clearinghouse in Scandinavia. And just to give you an example, when you want to transfer one security from Switzerland to Germany, it costs you 90 euro per clearance. If you have an investment of, let's say, 501,000 euro, it's not even worth it anymore. So that's why a lot of these fintechs, they just start in one country, like for instance, Trade Republic, Exporo, and so on. And if they want to internationalize, they really have to find either a big partnership with a bank that's connected to all of the different things, or they have to work with different bits and pieces in all different countries with different custodians, clearing houses, which is very expensive and eventually doesn't provide the experience that the end users want to have, which is instant and relatively cheap. The second one is the asset variety. So when you actually work with a partner, you're limited to their assets. So if you work, let's say, with an exchange like Lang & Schwarz and Börse Stuttgart, you have just these assets, but those are just public market assets. You don't have, for instance, access to cryptocurrencies. You don't really have access to fractional ownership of real estate. So what we can also provide is actually a private market assets that got tokenized and eventually have also some liquidity, plus the public market assets via derivatives that get tokenized. So it's a broader range of assets we can actually also offer via our rails. And the third one, which is kind of a result of all the top two, are the high custody costs. So pretty much when you work with a custodian, like for instance, Bada Bank, they charge you 40 basis points per retail custody per year, which is really, really high when you think about the margins you can make actually in a security brokerage world. So we reduce these costs by around 80% and can also offer this internationally. So this is pretty much what we can offer. It's international custody, is licensed by the BaFin. It's more assets. It's more affordable. So we replace a lot of legal work with an API. You can just plug it into your app. You have a certain reliability, and you also can, for instance, integrate in your data warehouse where you can actually automate certain processes. So we believe really an API is the future. The big infrastructure business like Plaid.com, for instance, or Stripe have shown that this is the future. And I think we could provide actually pipe for these securities at the custody and the clearing via our rails. And this is a use case, Exporo. So Exporo had this problem. They were in Germany. They're selling actually real estate to retail customers online. So you can buy like a fraction of a house. And they were using traditional security rails before, and they could see actually this is really expensive and not international. So they came to us and asked us, hey, is there not a way to build this better from scratch? So we did this, and we built pretty much then the whole issuance, custody, and clearing infrastructure around this. And this saves them around 4 million euros per year already. They also have now the possibility that they can go across borders on, let's say, the blockchain rails instead of the traditional banking rails. In terms of security, everything runs via smart contracts, so you have a clear trail as well. So it's completely compliant, it's completely approved also by the BaFin, and has massive benefits for customers like Exporo. We received a license this year, so there's a specific BaFin license, and we take care of security a lot. So we have a designated security team that makes sure that actually private keys don't get lost, but also there are other things like restricted wallet handling, authentication, access controls. So we always have to make sure that the end user actually gave the permission to do a trade, which happens with the 2FA on top, so that actually our tenants, so the customers, these fintechs, can execute the transaction on behalf of the end user after having received successful authorization from the end user before. So this was actually not a simple product we built, but it gives the full flexibility kind of to the tenant without actually limiting the security of the end users itself. So what is the big vision? So we are in talks with exchanges and issuers, and we get really excited about offering programmatic access to securities in these fintech apps. On the right-hand side is just a dummy example how it could look like. It looks a little bit like a Stripe for securities. So just imagine you're now a fintech and you want to offer, let's say, the top 100 ETFs. You want to offer a real estate to invest. The perfect way for us would be if there is a single call on our API and you could onboard these assets, but you can also offer the trading of these assets. And everything then kind of runs via a smart contract, so there's a clear trail behind this. And you also run it on our wallet infrastructure, which is per definition more international, also this year licensed by the BaFin. So exciting times ahead. We see actually in the Corona times that bigger companies come to us, including like the Sparkasse, but also really big asset managers, and want to talk. So we have to see if we can also convince them going that direction. But I think Corona is kind of an accelerator for digitalization in general. And many of these companies think about a proof of concept. And we see kind of like a new world with these fintech players that really want to offer these solutions internationally, cost efficient, and with a great user experience. But also on the asset issuer side, so companies that have the assets and want to kind of distribute them, that they're more open towards the distribution to fintechs, because they see that these fintechs grow so rapidly. And they have to think about also being integrated with these fintechs in the future. So exciting times ahead for us.